wrapping up. This is the last week in our series called Stay Calm and Read Psalms. And hopefully for you, it's been a good series to be in Psalms, reading Psalms. Maybe you've on Sunday heard a few stories that you never heard from these Psalms that we were doing. And so this is kind of a wrap up of that. And the last Psalm we're going to do is Psalms 96. This is a good Psalm that we're going to be diving into. And so if you have your Bible, you can go ahead and turn there or cut on your app and go there. We're going to be taking a look at that. Now, last week was the tough one. I had a couple of folks come out of the service and go, wow, Jim, wow, David, Bathsheba, wow, that's an intense story. And I was like, yeah, I know, but the Bible is real and it deals with real things. And so as intense as that one was last week, talking about Psalms 51, this week's Psalm is something completely different. That's the beauty of the Psalms, is they can capture so many different areas of our life. So as you read them, you may be reading one and someone is just totally crying out to God in their hurt and pain. And then a few Psalms later, somebody is celebrating God for who He is. And so this is one of those Psalms that's a celebration Psalm. It actually was born out of a group of people moving into freedom, away from captivity. So it was one of those moments where everybody was having a party, they was excited, and someone sat down and said, I got a song for this. And they just wrote this psalm. It's the Johnny B. Good of their era, as it was writing this thing. And so we're going to unpack the story of Psalms 96 and see how it kind of connects with us this morning as we celebrate. It was written at a time when this is after King David. So we know King David and Israelites and this big nation. We know King David and how incredible Israel was during that time. I mean, it was like it was the number one in the BCS poll. It was the king. Everybody looked up to Israel during that time. And then David had a son named Solomon. And Solomon took everything that David did and made it even better and built the temple up, and it was a glorious time. You totally wanted to be an Israelite during this time. Well, a few decades had passed, and a couple of not-so-good kings came to the table, and they slowly took the nation of Israel, a group of people, and kind of turned them. And they started falling away from God a little bit. Yeah, God's out there. Yeah, He's our leader. We have a temple. That's great. But they began to meander away from God. And as they did that, God kept calling them back. Hey, Israel, come on back. Hey, guys, come on back. But still, they kind of ignored the voice and kept walking and walking and walking. And so finally, God said, hey, listen, if you don't want me, then I'll let you have what you're looking for, yourself to lead you. And that's going to lead you in some pretty dangerous places. And sure enough, a nation rose up, Babylon, and they came over, and they were looking for people to kind of join them. And so the Babylonians were taking over these different countries, and they saw Israel and all their wealth and everything that God had blessed them with, and they said, hey, we want that. So the Babylonians came in and totally took over the nation of Israel. They were like, yeah, we want this land. And when they would come in and fight the army and take over a country, what they would do is they would pick out most of you. So if we were taken over by Babylon this morning, and they would pick out most of you, and they would uproot you, and they would send you to a different country. So you would be uprooted, and you'd be sent to live in Canada. So there in Canada, there'd be a different culture, there'd be a different language, because this is probably around Quebec, you need to learn French. You would be in a different place. All the things that you knew that you loved, the sunshine, gone. The warmth, not there anymore. It's Canada. And so you would be up there and not around anything. And that's what happened to Israel. The Babylonians came in, they took over their country, pulled most of them out of what they knew and what they understood, and took them all the way over to Babylon, and they were in captivity. Now, during this time, you're going to hear some great stories. If you're reading your Old Testament, you're going to read about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These are three guys that were taken out. They were living in Israel, enjoying life, and they were taken out, and now they're living in Babylon, and they don't understand the culture and those kind of things, and they're told to worship this big, huge idol, and you know the story, and everybody bows down except for the three guys way in the back, and the king looks out and goes, What is that? And the three guys are standing there, and they're taken before the king, and the king says, why didn't you bow down? And says, well, we don't worship you or your God. We worship the one true God. And so Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego are thrown into the fiery furnace. Now we know the rest of the story, how God delivers them, but those are the things that was going on to the Israelites. They were being killed for their beliefs. They were being persecuted in Babylon for what's going on. Daniel in the lion's den is going to happen during this Babylonian captivity. Daniel is going to be praying, and people really liked Daniel. He was a leader. He had kind of risen up, and the Babylonians had said, hey, we like you. We want to put you over a few things and let you manage the family grocery store. This is good stuff, Daniel. And so he was doing this thing, and he started praying to God, and he ended up getting thrown in the lion's den. So this wasn't an easy transfer. This wasn't, we like this new place and we're going to stay here. This was a time of persecution. This was a time when things were really, really, really tough, and these Israelites longed to go home. They longed to get back to their family, back to their culture, back to their land, back to everything they knew. They couldn't even worship the way they wanted to worship. And so in their hearts, they began to cry out to God, God, we want you to deliver us. And for 70 years, they lived in this captivity, and they told stories about where they used to be and what used to go on, and they were yearning to be back home. God heard their cry. God says, listen, I hear what's going on. And so God steps up into the picture, and God moves on the heart of a pagan king, which is absolutely incredible. This pagan king who doesn't worship the one true God says, you know what? Hey, I got enough. When's the last time a leader has said that? I've got enough. I don't need any more slaves. I don't need more money or anything. Why don't you group of people just go back home? Just, I'll give you some travel money. Totally going to do that. And so this is God moving on the heart of this king to give the Israelites freedom, money to rebuild their city, their town, and those things. And so basically God steps in and brings redemption. This whole country is able now to get up and leave Babylon and then go back home. What is interesting at this moment in their story is that many of them had kind of become comfortable in their captivity. That ever kind of happened to you? You get comfortable in maybe a habit or an attitude. You know what? When I have this attitude, people do things. And I get things done at work, and I get things done at home. And we become comfortable in maybe a not so good attitude or a not so good relationship, or we become comfortable in our own captivity. And so that's what happened for these guys. They became comfortable in their captivity. And so when God showed up and said, listen, I've delivered you, that king that's crazy, I moved on his heart, and he's releasing you and giving you money to go back and all those kind of things. And the Israelites were like, yeah, maybe on Wednesday? I got Babylonian dance class on Tuesday, and then I enjoy it. It's me and my wife. We're learning salsa. And so you're in this moment where these Israelites, they're not stepping into their freedom. They're kind of just like, yeah, we like it. They have become comfortable in their captivity. And as I think about this story, it just challenges me in my own life not to be there, to be able to step out and simply say, God promises freedom. Don't become comfortable in your captivity that you see what God offers, but you're unwilling to step into it. Because it does require trust. The Israelites didn't know anything about going back. We're going to have to rebuild the wall, and we're going to have to rebuild the city, and there's work. And there's a lot of work to be done in our journey of going back to freedom. But it's so worth it. And that's the call to us and a part of this story. So God moves on 3 or 4 prophets. Ezra, Nehemiah. When you read those books, those are prophets that God calls up and says, can you talk to my people? They are being hard-headed. They don't want to leave. Call them out. And so these prophets did. And finally, Israelites said, okay, we're going to do it. We're moving out of this, and we're totally going to go back. And so they begin to do that. They go back to Jerusalem. They rebuild the wall. They rebuild the city. They rebuild the temple. And they are ready to throw a party. I mean, they are excited. They are so stoked that they are back and everything is there. And they begin to celebrate. And they don't celebrate like we do. We celebrate Christmas as a day. They celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah. They just celebrate for weeks on end. And so during this celebration time, somebody sat down and wrote Psalms 96. Wrote a celebration of their freedom, wrote a celebration of what was going on in their life, and said, we need to celebrate who God is and how He's delivered us and the freedom we had. And this is Psalms 96. And we're just going to take a look at a couple of things in here, and then we're going to worship a little bit, and I'll turn you loose this morning. But Psalms 96, go there. Let's start with verse 1, 2, and 3 and talk about something that this person wrote about in this Psalms. Psalms 96, verse 1. Sing to the Lord a new song. You ever heard that phrase before? Sing to the Lord a new song? Sing to the Lord a new song. Sing to the Lord all the earth. Sing to the Lord and praise His name and proclaim His salvation day after day. I can imagine as this psalmist wrote that, he was thinking about all the days he'd been in Babylonian captivity and eaten Babylonian food and spoke the Babylonian language. And now he was finally free. He'd stepped into God's freedom and he was writing this. Sing to the Lord a new song. This picture of a new song was used throughout the Bible. It was kind of one of those significant pictures of turning loose of the old and embracing the new. When you think about this, you're going to see that when God created the world, and everything was dark and everything was black and there was nothing out there, and God stepped to the forefront and said, "Let there be." And there was. And He began to create the earth and the stars and the moon. And He did this amazing creation thing. And after 7 days, He stopped and rested. And He invited these angels. "Hey guys, you got to come check this out. This so worked." And so all the angels stepped to the edge of eternity. And they look out. And there's collective angel noise, rustling of wings. I'm not sure. But they step to the edge and they're looking. And angels are amazed. And Job chapter 38 verse 7 talks about how the angels sang a new song. They broke into this glorious chorus of this new song because the old was gone, darkness was gone, now there was light, now there was creation, now there was something new there. And so they sang a new song. Moses, as he led the people of Israel, remember when they're all captive? And Egypt had them, and they were in the slavery for several hundred years, and it was really hard, and their kids were being killed, and finally God delivered them. And they're coming out of the promised land and think, "We're finally free, this is awesome." And they get all the way up to the Red Sea, and they turn around, and lo and behold, the Egyptian army is chasing them. And they just assume they've got to this Red Sea, and they're going to die. "Moses, we could have died in Egypt, but now you brought us to this place, and we're going to die here." And so Moses said, "God, what are we going to do? What are you going to do?" And God tells Moses, "Raise your staff, and the sea will part, and you'll be able to go through." And sure enough, Moses does, and a wind blows, and they walk across on dry land, and they get to the other side, and they turn around and look and see the Egyptian army following them. Now they're thinking, "We're going to die on this side." "Oh, really great, Moses. You did not think this plan through. Come on, man." And so as the Egyptian army got all the way in the middle of the Red Sea, the waters crashed back, and the Egyptian army is crushed. And in that moment, when the old is gone, when slavery is put down in a way, when the Egyptian army is crushed, the Scripture says that the Israelites sat on the banks and sang a new song. A song of the old being passed away, and the new was here. And they didn't know what the new was going to be. They knew they had to go conquer land. They knew so much was in front of them that they had to do, but they were celebrating a new journey, a new step. The birth of Jesus. Whenever he's as a little baby, in a few weeks, we're going to be on that story talking about that. How before Christ was born, it was the law and following the rules and regulations. This is what you need to do. But when Christ was born and God did something amazingly new, never been done before, God became flesh, dwelt among us, talked to us, lived with us. When that baby was born, the angels again showed up on the scene and talked to a bunch of shepherds, and those angels again saw the newness of what was about to occur, and they sang a new song. Redemption is here, relationship is here. There's something new. We're trading the old, and we can even see it as angels. They're trading the old and they're embracing the new, a new song. And one last time, the Scriptures are going to say there's going to come a moment in our future when the curse of Babylon is gone and we're all speaking the same language and we're in heaven and we're celebrating, and God's made a new heaven and a new earth, and we've seen the completion of His plan, and we're all going to gather, remembering the old, stepping into the new, and singing a glorious song together. Now, I'm not going to be in charge of writing it because that would just be a funky little song, but someone is, and we're going to sing it. And that's this picture in the Bible when it says, let us sing a new song. What he's telling us, for some, that means, hey, listen, you've got the skill, talent, and ability to write a new song to God. But for most of us who don't have that talent and ability, it means that moment when we turn loose of the old, the old things that we hold on to, the old patterns, the old habits, the old life, and we turn loose the old and we say, listen, I know it's comfortable. I know that old song. I know first, second, third verse, I've lived them. I'm on verse 47, same song, different verse, I'm here. But I'm literally turning loose of that old song that I'm just in repetition with. And I'm moving toward a new one. A new song that I'm writing with God, and I don't know how it's all going to work. I'm on verse 1. I have no clue if I'm going to get my dog back at the end of verse 2. This is maybe a country song. You don't know. And so you're moving into this new song with God. And that's what he calls us to. And I'll simply say this. For many of us, it's time we write a new song. You've been stuck in that old one for years and years and same verse, and it's getting you nowhere. The celebration of this is stepping into God's freedom and writing a new song with your actions, with your heart, and celebrating that God, something new. Maybe it's praying. Maybe it's just engaging with God. Maybe it's something new in your relationships. You're going to respond differently. Maybe it's just a moment where you say, God, part of the verse that I'm going to write is just connection with those around me. I'm going to offer my heart where I used to hold it really tight and close to my vest. I'm going to engage with you. I'm writing a new song. Sing a new song to the Lord and celebrate his great salvation day after day. Another part of this psalm, which I find that I love a lot, is verse 7, 8, and 9. I'll do 7 and 8. This is a good description. It says this: ascribe to the Lord, O families of the nation. And ascribe means give. Give to the Lord, O families of nations. Give to the Lord glory and strength. Ascribe to the Lord. Give to the Lord glory due his name. And what that simply means, because we don't use that word ascribe a lot. Give to the Lord glory. Give to the Lord awe and wonder. Now, I say this because honestly, I don't do this very well. I think about my own self. Giving to the Lord, letting myself be amazed and overwhelmed. I just, honestly, I keep it tight to the vest, unless it's a Hallmark movie and then I'll leak a little bit. But I just keep it tight to the vest. It's just kind of how I'm wired. Most guys wired this way a little bit. But there's a time when God says, listen, give to me awe and wonder. Express to me that you're amazed and be willing to be overwhelmed by who I am. And as I thought about this verse this week, taking time in those moments where I just say, God, it is okay, and I give you permission to overwhelm me with your grace and with your love. And I'm not going to hold back. I'm just going to say, God, you're good. I think the reason it doesn't happen more in my own life is simply this, is I kind of get caught up in life itself. It's easy for God just to become another thing. It's easy for God to become very ordinary. And I forget how incredible and how great and how awesome he is. God's on the list. We did Sunday. That's perfect. All right, I did that. I prayed. That's good. That's great. Now I've got dinner. God's not going to provide dinner. Manna will not fall from my ceiling. That's stuff that's asbestos. We don't want to keep that. So, God, I got to do dinner. I got to do life. I've got to do all these things. And God can become just another thing on the list and so very ordinary. And this psalm challenges us. It simply says, remember how amazing and how incredible your God truly and really is. And that's honestly what I love so much about hearing someone's story. About doing testimonies. The testimonies we showed on the screen. When somebody steps up and says, hey, listen, I got a testimony. God has been amazing to me. And they tell the story of how God has been at work in their life. And it reminds me, man, yes, my God is amazing. And he's incredible. And I want to engage with him because of that. Letting God overwhelm you and you be amazed by him. It's in stories, it's in church. Kyle said it really well at the beginning of the message, or beginning of the worship. He said this: when you come in here, here's what we hope. We hope that you encounter God. Now, I want you to do a lot of things. I want you to meet new friends. I want you to feel comfortable. I want you to stack food really high and awkwardly. There's a lot of things I want you to do. But if you come in and you miss this, an encounter with God, you miss the best thing. You miss the best thing that we offer, the best thing that we do as a community, coming in where we stop and say, God, it has been crazy getting here, but now it's just you and me. And I am opening my heart to you, God. You can speak to me. You can overwhelm me. You can encourage me. And I give you this moment to encounter me so that I can encounter you. And I think that's how we pull God out of the ordinary and we step into what this psalm says. I ascribe to you, I give to you glory and honor and awe. And that's a part of what we're called to do in our worship. It's a part of what we're called to do in life. And in fact, I think for me also, it's stopping to take time to remember who he's been to me. This past week, I had the honor of spending some time with a man that was approaching the end. His days in this world were wrapping up, and he's got an amazing chapter to live, a story to live with God, and has been a Christ follower since he was 35, and so spent some time with him, hearing his stories and just laughing at how he's loved his family, how he's cared for them, and all those things. And as we sat there, I began to ask him questions. So tell me, one, is it worth following Jesus? And he said, absolutely. If I can tell you one thing, he said this: Jesus is alive and Jesus is real. And this is at the end. I mean, if you're not going to be honest at any point, it's not going to be here. You're going to be straight up honest with me because you're there. And he said, Jesus is alive and Jesus is real. And he said, Jim, Jesus is worth following. And he began to tell me story after story how God had been gracious in his life with his family. And it was just an amazing moment for me to sit here in the presence of just an ordinary guy who'd followed God, who was looking back on his life, marking all the moments that God had been gracious, and God had been good, and God had been loving. And we didn't have a guitar, we didn't have a song, but we had worship. We just worshiped and hearing these stories. And I walked out of that moment, and it made me pause. It made me pause because we only have so many days. And those days are filled with a lot of things. Know this: they're also filled with God's loving, gracious moments, and we need to take time to stop and reflect on those. Reflect on the moments that we have with our kids and with our family. Reflect on the moments that God has stepped in and redeemed us. Have we had hard times in life? You better believe it. I'm looking at a group of people that has scars. But we have a God that has journeyed with us in life and taken those scars and healed them. And this psalm simply says, remember me. Remember me in the everyday moments of life. Don't let me become ordinary. Take time when you stop and you ascribe to me awe and wonder, because I've been walking with you each and every day. And I think that's our challenge. That's our challenge as a group of people as we celebrate this morning, to take this truth that God is amazing and God is worth it and God is worth following and God is incredible and he calls us to sing a new song, to be able to reflect on the moments of life when God is real and God lives and God's at work and he's done amazing things. You're going to have an opportunity in worship to ascribe to God glory and awe, but I don't want it to stop there. Monday morning when you get up, take a moment. Just be gracious. Just be thankful for the God of the universe that still walks with you and encourages you. If you've got something in your life, you go, Jim, this is not pretty. This is not a pretty place that I am. Yield to God. Give that to God and say, God, can you make this beautiful? Can I ascribe awe and wonder to this really ugly thing that has captured me and captivated my heart and life, and see how God does a work so that you can begin to write a new song. It has been a glorious journey through the Psalms to get to the end and simply say, God is worth following, God is worth engaging, and he's worth celebrating in our heart and our life. Pray with me as we ask God to take his word and speak deeply to our heart. Father, Psalms 96 is a great one to wrap up. And as I think about my week, as I think about the days to come and the busyness of Thanksgiving and Christmas and the to-do lists, Father, step in. Break through my stuff and give me moments where I can just see your gloriousness, when I can see your grace in my relationship with my wife and my kids, when I can see your grace in how you've handled my heart when maybe I haven't handled it well or other people haven't handled it well. And I ask that for every man, woman, and child in this room, Father, that you show up this morning especially, but every day this week and this month, that you show up and draw us out of the ordinary, where we can simply see you for the glorious, incredible God that you are. Speak to us. Let us be awed by your mercy and your grace and your love, and stand in your presence, ascribing to you what a wonderful God you are and how we can serve you. And we just offer this up as our prayer this morning. And everyone said, amen.